new reports, there will be an upcoming coup attempt to take the Kremlin out of power, to take Vladimir Putin away from authority. Okay, this is interesting because I actually said from day one that in order for this to work, in order for you to neutralize a madman, there has to be a power vacuum, and somebody inside of Russia, the leadership circle of Russia, will have to fill that power vacuum and take power away from Vladimir Putin. I said that's the only way this is going to work, and hopefully sanctions will make enough people uncomfortable in Russia to where that becomes a reality. Sounds like that is now happening. Okay, disgruntled generals have now joined the FSB, looking to oust Putin and end the Ukraine war. Now, according to reports, Putin and his propaganda ministers sold this war as a quick, easy win, and that it would liberate the people in Ukraine. That's what he said. That's according to reports coming out now, and that's also why he decided to control the flow of information so that you could not get a contrary narrative inside of those silos in Russia. Rumors are swirling in Moscow that a number of former generals and KGB officials are preparing to oust Russia's president, Vladimir Putin, and plan to end the war in Ukraine, which is increasingly seen across Russia as a strategic mistake, and above all, a complete economic disaster. The top of Putin's former employer, the Russian Security Service, FSB, is said to be so frustrated by the lack of military progress in Ukraine that it has reached out to a number of generals and former army officials, according to various analysts and local media reports. In particular, a group called the Siloviki, which comprises of former FSB officers who are active in Russian politics, is said to be pushing hard to replace Putin, together with former officers from the GRU, KGB, and FSO, other Russian intelligence units, all right? So the idea of a coup may be increasingly likely. It's further strengthened by social media activity across Russia and Eastern Europe, which has gone into overdrive in the last 24 hours. Moreover, analysts in and outside of Russia have said all signs are there that Putin will face a coup very soon. The Russian president is reportedly very worried and has tightened security in and around the Kremlin. Does it matter? It matters a lot, said Russian security expert Andrei Seldatov, told the Center for European Policy Analysis. The Russian president has been bracing for a coup for some weeks, as has faced fierce criticism over his special operation in Ukraine, and he has purged around 150 of his spies over the constant failures. Now, the initial planning, this is according to an authority familiar with the situation, the initial planning and initial phase of the invasion, where the Russian military naturally assumed that they're going there as liberators rather than the invaders. The very first casualty of war is the truth. That's the first thing that dies. Because they have to create, and we've talked about this on Indisputable in length. They have to create what's called a front-leaning narrative. That front-leaning narrative is the sales pitch. In order for the sales pitch to work, you must lie about the reason they need the product. The first casualty of war is the truth. Woz, what do you think of this? A possible coup maybe happening in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I think people need to understand even the strongest of strong men cannot lead all by himself.
Right.
They lead at the behest of the other people within power, whether that be the generals. And in this case, they're saying the generals aren't on his side. But to me, what that means is that the oligarchs and the money are no longer on his side, because the only people that can sort of enticed the generals and the intelligence community to lean in a different situation, or the people with the rest of the means. Like the people with the rest of the money could maybe persuade these folks. And the bottom line is this hasn't worked out in the way that Putin said that it would. He hasn't delivered. And from all reports by all accounts, this guy has been super isolated because he's so afraid of COVID. He's been super isolated from people for 2 years now. So it's not like he's in direct contact with anybody. So the idea that people that matter, the oligarchs and the generals and the military people, that they could become disaffected by a guy that they don't even get to see anymore, that rings true to me. Even if this might be, Western propaganda, the facts on the ground remain the same. Like this war hasn't been some raging success for the Russian troops.
Yeah, not at all. And you have to give credit to the fighting spirit of the people in Ukraine. They have refused to give up.
Yep.
They are proud of their heritage.